Most people looking at AI stocks right now are stuck between two fears: missing out entirely or investing at the exact wrong time. And nobody is teaching people how to tell the difference. I've been investing for over a decade. My public portfolio is beating the market, and I'm going to show you the exact method that I use to find AI companies that are genuinely undervalued before everyone else figures it out. Now, AI is undoubtedly going to play a huge role in the economy in the future. But in the year 2000, the story was very similar with internet companies. In the year 2000, we had the dot-com bubble where dot-com companies were way overinvested and the entire stock market crashed by nearly 50%. Back in that time, people were overly exuberant about dot-com companies. Even though they were going to go on to play a huge role in the economy, people were over-investing. Companies got pushed to extreme valuations. And then when the economy contracted a little bit, suddenly the environment was not suited for extreme growth, and then over-invested companies paid the price. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you how to make sure that that doesn't happen to you investing in an AI company. Now, investing is probabilistic. We can never be 100% sure that our investments will pay off. So all we can do is stay properly diversified and make sure that we're not investing in a company that has way too many obvious red flags. And this method is not just about finding the most boring, safe companies. This also leaves plenty of room for upside. A year ago, I used the strategy to invest in ASML. It's up over 100%. Also, Photronics, ticker PLAB, over the last year, it's up 157%. So the first step is to set up our screener. Now, there are many different companies in the AI vertical, and just to create a quick list, I used ChatGPT to give me just a breakdown of all the different areas where you could find exposure to AI, everywhere from raw materials and mining to design of the chips, semiconductor manufacturing, foundries, all the way down to the very bottom of the chain, number 15 here, the services layer, implementation, consulting, and integration. So there are lots of different areas to choose from where you could expand and look for companies in different parts of the vertical and find exposure. For the purposes of this video, I just went with 3 different categories. I've got hyperscalers, which again, I use ChatGPT just to give me a list of the top 20 hyperscalers. We've got 18 on this list. I've got chip makers, and I've got chip design / intellectual property. Let's start with chip makers. Now, this is just my initial screener. If a company passes this screener, I still go on to do a deeper dive where I perform a free cash flow valuation. I use my automated spreadsheet, which makes it a lot faster and easier. And if you're interested in downloading my spreadsheet for free, you can find it in the description. Now, on this screener, I'm looking at just 3 different metrics. First, price divided by operating cash flow. This is a very important ratio. Second, the projected revenue growth over the next 5 years. And third, the average return on invested capital over the last 5 years. So we're going to go through these one by one. For price divided by operating cash flow, this is important to me because I am going on to do a discounted free cash flow valuation. So normally I would look at the price divided by the free cash flow. And if a company has a really low ratio, then it's a solid indicator that it might be undervalued. And then I would go on to do a deeper dive. However, in the AI vertical, many companies are reinvesting heavily into their business through capital expenditures. Now, to calculate free cash flow on these screeners, they go ahead and they just deduct all of a company's CapEx. But in a case like this, where companies are growing through CapEx spending, then I might not want to deduct all of the CapEx. And so the free cash flow numbers on a screener like stockanalysis.com might be artificially lower. So I just eliminate the CapEx entirely, and I'm looking at the price to operating cash flow ratio. A lower ratio is better, a higher ratio is worse. However, a higher ratio might be justified. So let's look at Broadcom here, AVGO. They have a very high price to free cash flow ratio, but they also have incredibly high revenue growth projected over the next 5 years. The same with AMD. They are both at the top of this list, but they are also at the highest end on projected growth. Now, having huge projected growth, that is a good thing. It's never bad for analysts to say, oh, we think that this company is going to grow a lot, right? That's never a bad thing. However, even though it's a good thing, if you're using it to justify a high price to operating cash flow, that does create an element of risk because all of this future growth is not guaranteed. The economy could contract. We may find ourselves in an environment that's not suited for growth, and then all of this valuation that we had that was predicated on future growth could go out the window. So even though future growth is good, we have to be careful about letting this justify too high of a price to operating cash flow ratio today. And then the third category is return on invested capital. I want to see that the company is getting good returns on their investments because, like I said, right now these companies are heavily self-investing through CapEx. If they do not have a history of high returns on invested capital, then I don't want to invest. So these are my three categories. If a company passes through these three filters, then I will go on to do a deeper dive. Let's get right into it. The thing that I'm looking at here is, number one, I want the price to operating cash flow to be similar to the revenue growth over the next 5 years. Now, unfortunately, at the very top of our list, the lowest price to operating cash flow, they do not have a revenue growth projection on here for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why, because if I click on Qualcomm and I go to their forecast page, they do have a revenue forecast, but only for 3 years. So to me, what I'm seeing is an average revenue growth of, it looks like about 2 to 3%. So not a very high revenue growth. So that would be a really solid indicator for why this company does not have as high of a price to operating cash flow ratio. Now, a situation that I do not want to see is a situation like this. AMAT, this company has a really high price to operating cash flow, and then they have a very relatively low revenue growth over the next 5 years. So companies that have a lower number here and a higher number in this category, those are the companies that I want to take to the next level. And of course, I want to see a really high return on invested capital. So first, let's go to the very top of the list. Let's start with Qualcomm. To get a better idea of their projected revenue growth over the next 5 years, I like to go to the Morningstar Equity Analyst Report, where they do give longer term projections in stockanalysis.com. So if I scroll to the very bottom, they give a table here where they have all of their projections. So right here, revenue growth percentage forecast over the next 5 years. So the average is actually 5.7, while they had a price to operating cash flow ratio of 11. So this is the first company that I'm going to do a quick discounted free cash flow evaluation. Here is my discounted free cash flow automated spreadsheet where I type in the ticker. It automatically pulls all of the relevant information from stockanalysis.com. In the data entry tab, this is where it pulls the information that I'm looking for. Then I format that data into neater columns and rows. This tab, I perform the discounted free cash flow analysis calculation. And then finally on my dashboard, this is where it spits out calculations. It's still important to make a few key assumptions. If we make garbage assumptions, we're going to get garbage valuations. So here are my list of assumptions for Qualcomm. This first cell right here is the average annual revenue growth for the next 5 years. I put 5.7%, which was what the Morningstar Equity Analyst Report had. For years 6 through 10, I made it slightly more conservative at 4%. And for a perpetual growth rate, I set it equal to 3%, which is roughly equal to inflation. For their free cash flow margin, I use their average free cash flow margin over the previous 5 years. I have 22%. And my discount rate, this is my desired return every single year going forward. I'm targeting a return on investment of 8.35%. Based on this set of assumptions, if Qualcomm can just hit 5.7% revenue growth over the next 5 years, and then 4%, and then 3% without losing or gaining any of their current profitability, that's a key assumption, then the projected share price is $197. This represents a 31% margin of safety. That's because the stock is currently trading at $150 per share. So according to this set of assumptions, if the analysts are correct and they maintain their current level of profitability, then the company is undervalued. Now I can look to see if we have a little bit of a margin of safety, even if the analysts are overshooting a little bit. Let's say they only grow their revenue by 3% for years 1 through 5, 3% for years 6 through 10, 3% for the perpetual growth rate. We still have a margin of safety of 13%. So this is the type of company that I'm looking for. One where if the analysts are correct, I see a significant upside. Even if the analysts are off by about a factor of 2, then I still am projected to see an upside. So now let's look at an example of a company that might be overvalued. The next company that I'm looking at on this screener is Intel. Now this is the most egregious difference in ratio. We have a price to operating cash flow ratio of 42.5. What that means is for every $42.50 in share price, the company only has $1 of operating cash flow per share. The revenue growth over the next 5 years is only 7.9%, according to the average analyst opinion on stockanalysis.com, which aggregates a whole bunch of analysts. And then finally, their return on invested capital is the lowest. Now, there are a few caveats here. Intel has made a significant pivot in their business model. They've been investing heavily in chip making. And so over the past 5 years, as they've been executing this pivot, their returns have been much lower. So they haven't seen that return on investment yet. So that is a point here that we maybe can't quite pay attention to this return on invested capital over the last 5 years. What this does tell us is they haven't had much of a return yet. Now, past performance is not a guarantee of future performance, but it is an important indicator. So we're going to look at Intel on the discounted future free cash flow spreadsheet. So here I've put in their ticker. I have their annualized revenue growth at 10.8, not 7.9. I'm going to go with a little bit of a higher projected growth. If I go to Morningstar Equity Analyst Report for Intel, this is as of April 23rd. So this is a really up-to-date assessment here by Morningstar. They are saying the average revenue growth over the next 5 years is 10.8. They are also showing an average free cash flow margin to the firm of 7.5. Now, if we look at their free cash flow margin over the past, it's been negative, but Morningstar thinks that they're going to start seeing a return on that investment, and their free cash flow ratio or free cash flow margin is going to start increasing, going from 8 all the way up to 15 for an average of 7.5 over the next 5 years. So on my spreadsheet, I have put in 7.5. That's for the free cash flow margin. For the revenue growth, I have 10.8 per Morningstar. I have a little slightly more conservative for years 6 through 10, 8%, 3% perpetual growth rate, and a discount rate of 8.35. Now, based on that set of assumptions, the fair share price of Intel is 75% overvalued. So the fair share price is $21.50. If I go to Intel's current share price, it's 84. So this is a situation where over the next 5 years, they have to far exceed the analyst expectations, especially going into years 6 through 10. So this is making a big assumption here that the free cash flow margin stays at their 5-year average. Morningstar showed that their peak free cash flow margin at the end of the 5-year period might get up to 15. So let's do a little bit of experimenting here and see what set of assumptions will make Intel's current share price make sense, because clearly the market is valuing them much higher than this set of 5 years assumption, this 5 years out assumption then playing out into the future. So if I now change the 7.5 to 15%, doubling their free cash flow margin, and this is effective immediately. If they have a 15% margin starting tomorrow, and then for the next 5 years, they're still overvalued by about double. So if I then add in free cash flow margin growth over the next 5 years, let's say they grow their free cash flow margin by 1% per year. Now they are still having 23% overvaluation. If I change this to 1.5, 13% overvaluation. Let's change it to 2. So finally, we have arrived at the fair share price of Intel today. And this free cash flow margin growth, this is for my 5-year projection period. So that means at the end of 5 years, they're going to be at 25% free cash flow margin. And so if they do all of that, now they're currently fairly valued. So in Intel's case, in my mind, they have to do too much to justify their current share price today. Now, this is not to say that Intel won't be a great investment. It could far exceed analyst expectations. It could go on to do incredibly well, but the point of this exercise is to protect our downside in the event that we have a contraction in our economy. For instance, we have a conflict in Iran going on, which is increasing the price of energy. We could see that trend continue. As we know, operating these large language models is very energy intensive. This could have a negative impact on companies in the AI sphere. So when I see a company like Intel, I see a company that had its valuation pushed up a whole lot, and it's pushing past what the analysts expect to happen over the next 5 years. And a lot of things have to go really right for this company 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years out. None of that is guaranteed. So a company like Intel at this current share price, I'm not going to invest because I see it as too risky. Real quick, guys, this is Brian from the future. So it takes us a couple weeks to edit these videos and then finally get them uploaded. So the stock prices have moved around quite a bit. So for instance, Qualcomm, the company that we said was undervalued, it's gone up like 20% just in the last 5 days, which is crazy. And then Intel, the company that we said was overvalued, it's also gone up over 10%. So whenever we're looking at these stocks, it's not about the actual prices and buy recommendations at this price. It's more to highlight the method that we're using to find undervalued companies and to determine if a company is overvalued and maybe looks too risky. And so in this case, Intel, we say it's overvalued, but it has still gone up in price. So I'm not trying to say when a company is overvalued that it's hit its absolute peak and it's no longer going to go up anymore, just that it looks too risky to have continued long-term positive results over many years. We are taking a value investing approach. And if you're interested in seeing real-time stock prices and my methods being used in real time, then checking out my stream every Wednesday would be a better place to see that kind of content. So I hope to see you there on Wednesdays, 6:30 p.m.